together. Getting some emails now.
Ah, there's Lara. Okay. Just about 2 more minutes, everyone. I think everyone should be in by then. I am working on my third principal's coffee today. I think we had about 390 people in the elementary session, and I'm not even sure, Gina or Tim, how many we had in the Crittenden session, but all really good discussion so far.
Yeah.
I think the overflow room was important.
Yeah, we had about 200 for the middle school.
That's great. So any parents who are attending this one, we will talk in some general terms again. You may hear a little bit of a repeat as far as health and safety is concerned, but you will hear something different as far as a 9th through 12th grade schedule. All right, Liz, thanks, Liz Kaplan. She said the password just came into the blast is different than the one you gave us with the 9s in it. Yes, that's true. Chris is sending out a new blast. Thanks, Liz.
Getting there.
Is there anybody on this call who received the updated blast from Chris Walsh saying that the new code was 979994?
No, it never came out.
It didn't come out yet.
No.
Okay.
No. I haven't. Yeah, I just got it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Caroline.
I got that email.
Yeah, I just got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here they come.
Okay, they're coming in.
They're marching.
Thanks for the help.
Great.
That's crowdsourcing. Thanks, everyone.
We give it just a minute. Thanks, everyone, for your patience who's at home. I don't want to set sail unless I know that I have most of my cargo. All right, Mr. Walsh, I think we all have the right number this time. Somebody's saying 9799994 is not working.
That one more.
That
should
can't be
work.
possible. It worked, right?
That one
Yeah.
more.
It worked.
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you. Oh, it is working. Thanks.
Yes, it did.
Okay, thank you. Can I sneak in a question before we start? Why not? Will they be eating lunch in the cafeteria or in their classrooms? Go for it, Mr. Walsh.
Good question to start off with. Yes, so we are anticipating that they will be eating in the cafeteria, but also in the Bobcat Hall area and perhaps even in the lower gym space. So the good thing about the plan is that we have half the kids coming into the school and then we're splitting lunches up in half of that half. So it'll be 1/4 of the kids eating lunch at any one time in any one of those 3 larger spaces.
And we've worked with Aramark. This will come in the plans, but about having grab and go lunches instead. So we've worked out the particulars of that too. And we are looking into plexiglass shields potentially for the cafeteria so that kids could maybe eat together a little bit closer. But we're still looking into that for now. They're just going to be distanced. And I'm going to ask, I think we maybe should get started now. It's 3:10. I think we probably have addressed a lot of the people who are coming in. We have over 100 people here today. And we'll continue to let people in. We have an overflow room too. I'm going to ask, as we do the presentation, we found that this was helpful at Crittenden. If people listen to the presentation first and thought about your questions and see if the questions are answered by the time we get to the end instead of filling the chat box, because sometimes then we're clogging it up with things we've answered and we can't address the ones that we didn't in a presentation. That would be super helpful. I want to start by thanking the parents. So just know in my role as a superintendent, that mistakes are those things that make me wince, especially when the mistakes that I make cause people out in the world to spend extra energy and time. So Chris had sent out the meet to come today, the Zoom meet, and I guess the code wasn't sent with it. And then I guess inadvertently a wrong code was sent and then a right code had to be resent. And many of you started this whole procedure in a very frustrating way. I know that we're all now in a world where like we know we have to have this series of false starts to get anything done, but I never intended that to happen to you. And I apologize because I know how frustrating that is. So thanks to the parents who were on, who were letting us know what was wrong so that we could try to fix that. We have a couple of people here joining us today. I know that we have at least 2 board members here, Mia DiPietro and Lara Stengel. I'm not sure if any of the other board members are here, only because there are so many names in there. I can't find them. But if they are, I know that we have students who are in the high school level for the rest of our board members as well. And I want to thank them for their work. The board has been meeting with me every single week in small group work sessions or in large groups for board meetings, pretty much for the past few months, in trying to develop this return to school plan. These return to school plans were not just made in a way of how are we just going to bring children into school. We had to rely on so many professionals and stakeholders to help us in the development of this plan. So I want to start first by saying at a school level, every single administrator and most teachers and some staff members have been the part of committees, either task force committees, subcommittees, curriculum committees, to develop these plans. It was really important for us that these plans started at the base and moving up. And why is that important? Because our teachers and our staff members and our administrators have to have fidelity to a plan that we put out to the community. So that was hugely important to us. We also had a stakeholder group that includes members of the school community, the PTSA, parents in the community, medical professionals in the community who have given graciously hours of their time to help us pour through our health and safety sections of the document that we will be submitting to the state. So there are countless stakeholders that are in these groups. We also have had the added benefit of having Dr. Thomas Murray, who is the Associate Director of Pediatric Immunology at Yale Children's Hospital. He has been a consultant to the district and a consultant to the board, has met with the board and speaks to me weekly about my questions and concerns about how we are organizing as far as the health and safety is concerned. He has sent me studies about air filters and air conditioning. I mean, we've covered the gamut from a medical perspective. I am not a medical person, so we needed to have that backup. I want to thank our members of the community, Dr. Melissa Price, Dr. Lori Dyer, Dr. Frank Contessessa, Dr. Richard Stumacher, who's in critical care at Northwell Health, who takes calls from me constantly about looking at our plans to make sure that we have vetted it through professionals in our community as well. So thank you so much. I know that we have Francis Bordoni of White Plains Hospital, that we have Hank Padley, who's with the U.S. Military and Strategy, all of these people helping us to formulate these plans. So this is a community effort. I will say all of the time and energy into going into this, and every single administrator and most people, even if you're working from home right now, you know that a weekend is no longer a weekend. But we know that after developing these plans and the board approving this approach to start the school year, that at any given time, these plans can change. The governor is supposed to be telling us sometime between August 1st and 7th if we can move ahead with our state approved plans that we are going out with for September. We know that the governor may tell us by August 7th that we are going to move ahead and open up schools. And we also know from past experience that the governor may say, I need to wait 2 weeks to give you that kind of an answer. And then we're waiting 2 weeks and we're waiting 2 weeks. And there could be a potential that at that point we are remote. Provided this is all taking into account the health and safety of our children and our staff members in this community, we will be flexible and meet those needs. So what you are going to hear today is a schedule that is created that is adaptable at the high school level. So even when your children are not physically present in school, they will be physically present in class every day, following their classroom schedule with some synchronous, some asynchronous, and some independent working time during the period they're supposed to be in class. We listened very closely to the parent feedback and the staff feedback after the spring. There were some things that we did really, really well in the spring, and some things, quite frankly, we didn't. And partially because we were starting with a platform that we had no idea, or a whole system of teaching we had no idea of doing. Sort of like, telling an outdoor farmer that suddenly you're only going to be growing crops in a greenhouse. It's like a totally separate and different kind of practice. So we've been adapting to that practice. We took your feedback to heart, and we are looking at things that you've asked for and teachers have asked for. Specific schedules every day that are mirrored if we go out to remote learning, so that there is no change in our system of instruction. So classes that are set up every single day that can be easily switched to remote learning. Students that are responsible to attend a class, to take attendance, to participate in that class, not to turn off their video and play Fortnite, right? So we want situations where kids are attentive in the class and in the learning experience with others. And our professional teachers have looked at all of the ways to adapt that kind of instruction, and we're supporting them with that. When we release the New York State Education guidance, which will be on the website in the coming days, you will see exactly what we are saying instruction is going to look like. Today, I'm going to be focusing mostly on schedules and health and safety. I warn you, I sent out last night just the schedules part of our document because our document is over 90 pages long already. But I will make it very easy for you to read on the website when it comes on there with little accordion tabs set up to the table of contents so you can open sections that you want to learn more about. So that will be shared with you. But remember the flexibility that has to go into this. We need to know that at any given moment, this is going to change. One question I would anticipate, why are 7th graders through 12th graders on a hybrid schedule? Why aren't they on a schedule that is in person every single day? And my heart bleeds for that freshman that hasn't been at Byram Hills High School yet, right? And the fact that they cannot go to school every single day. There are a couple of reasons that factored into our decision to do that. First of all, rates of transmissions of students in those like late teen to early teen ages is significantly higher than rates of transmission in some of those lower elementary grade age levels. Taking that into account, our goal, we have square footage in Byram Hills. In truth, we can bring all of these children into the high school every single day. Right now, watching these rising transmission rates for those teenage years, it is not prudent to do so. And I will tell you why. When your child comes in the high school, the instruction is going to be very different. Their learning dispositions are different than an elementary school child. So we have gotten high school children accustomed to, and will continue to get them accustomed to, a blended or remote learning lifestyle. So if we brought every child back to school, it would mean that I would have half of a class in the classroom with the teachers, and the remaining students who couldn't fit in that class would be in an overflow room. It cannot run like elementary. I cannot have that teacher going from class to class because our overflow rooms would be gyms and cafeterias. And it doesn't make any sense to me to jeopardize the health of those high school students by having them do remotely from a cafeteria or a gym what they can do from their homes in a safer environment. That was the thinking behind that. They have the learning dispositions. There is no reason to bring them in. Now, for social reasons, with students being 6 feet apart, it is best for us to carry that out for a high school level. Could that change? I really hope it does. And we, if things change, will be willing to bring back grade levels and then willing to bring back everyone if this is gone tomorrow, right? So this will look much different for us. But we will bring back grade levels after a significant amount of time has passed, that the Board of Education, the medical professionals, the administrators, and I can actually sit and say the rate of transmission in Westchester County, in our school area, is so low that we think that we can continue to bring back groups at a time, like freshmen back first. And that would be our plan. So I would say if you run renditions of like 14-day quarantine periods, my first look at whether we are going to bring students back in groups would probably be about a month or so after we first come back to school, because we want to see how many cycles of quarantine have gone through, how many transmissions we have. We have to expect that people are going to contract COVID. We have to expect that. It is anywhere and everywhere that it could happen. When I am bringing your children back to school, I am also bringing all of your family situations back into the school with those children. And the same thing for the staff. What is important is knowing that those situations could happen. We are doing everything in our power to make sure that they don't, with social distancing, with cleaning, with air conditioning systems and filters, with BioShield sprays that don't allow COVID to adhere to contact surfaces. We are doing everything in our power that we can. It is likely that we will have cases. So we have been communicating with the Department of Health. They are assigning people, contact tracers, just to school districts. They will be calling you if your child is in class with somebody who's COVID positive. They will be calling you, even if it's a staff member. I will be giving that information, and I will be giving them the information of anyone who may have come into contact with the positive person on a bus, in traveling in certain hallways, anything that we can do to support that. They will be in touch with you, and then the Department of Health will give us guidance, whether we close down cohorts, close down buildings for certain periods of time, ask certain people to quarantine or to self-isolate. But I do want you to know that as a school district, we are very conservative and we live well with that conservatism. And I just mean in the terms of health. In March, we closed school almost a week earlier than other school districts in the county. And it is because, given what we were seeing out there, and given the fact that we knew this was new to the Department of Health, and that testing and contact tracing and everything like that was not in effect at the time, that we needed to keep people safe and close down schools. The Board of Education is ready to do that if they don't think the Department of Health's recommendation is safe enough for our district. So that is one assurance we can give you, that we will be very careful and conservative in that regard. The other thing that I want to talk about is your choices as a parent. So you all have high school age children at this point. I recently did. They're both in college, both going away to college in the next few weeks. I can't imagine that. Think about that. You know, a good 13-hour drive. So all of these things considered. When I had high school age students, I took on my responsibilities as a parent, as you do. And I remember those days. I remember when my child was asking to go do something on a Friday night and they were driving there and it was starting to snow, that I took my parent prerogative. And I said, I'm sorry, it's snowing. You're not going. You're staying home. I want you to feel as a parent in this time when so many complex factors are affecting your family and are affecting our environment, that you can make your own decisions as a parent to what you want to do to keep your child safe. Our goal, based on CDC, Department of Health, New York State Education Department, is to bring students back to school in the safest way possible. You may have very other different considerations for your house. I want to explain how that might work. In the New York State Education Department guidance document, which is on their website, they have shared what they call medically vulnerable students, or students who are in medically vulnerable situations. Now, it could be a student who has a specific health-related issue. It could be a student who's living in a house with someone who has a health-related issue. We, as a school district, for the first time ever through New York State Education Department, are required to teach those children remotely. So if you meet any of those criteria, and I have to be honest with you, if you're worried, go look at it. You probably fit one of the criteria. Your child can be a remote learner for the year or until you are ready to send your child back to school. Your child will be placed in a class on the schedule, and they will be following school just as the remote students are doing in the hybrid model every day. They will be expected to attend those periods every day. They will be given work. They will have synchronous time with their teachers, and you have that option as a parent. If you have somebody who's medically fragile in your house, I want you to know this. I'm not asking for your medical authorization. I'm not asking you to seek a medical professional and to give me the medical records of your mother or grandmother. I'm taking your word on it as a parent in this community that that is what is happening in your home, and we will provide that remote instruction. If your home situation changes and you want your child to come to school in the hybrid fashion or in the all students return fashion, you just need to let us know so we can expect them. And that can happen probably within 24 hours of you letting us know. We have a space for them. We will take them back. That gives parents a lot of assurances that you can make decisions as parents. I will now but I will share my screen, and I will start with a presentation that I have for today that will really get into the nitty-gritty of what some of the schedules are. And Chris Walsh can also help us, and Colleen O'Connor and Kristen Sautner, who are here, the two assistant principals. Tim Kaltenecker is here, Deputy Superintendent for Curriculum. Gina Cunningham is here, Assistant to the Superintendent for Human Resources. And I think that may be it for our group. So I talked about key considerations already about repurposing spaces. It's not possible to cohort kids entirely at the high school level, or really at all, I should say, because they're in different level classes. Somebody is in calculus while somebody else is in algebra 2 trigonometry, yet they both share the same chemistry class. It's just not possible. So we have instead, Chris has worked very hard with everybody at the high school to develop a block schedule that I'll show you in a few moments. Social distancing has been really important to us, and we will be having markers. If somebody can mute people, Tim, that would be great. If we can socially distance, having marking all around the building for that to happen. Knowing and preparing for when somebody gets sick. Our nurses stations are prepared for that. We will also have a mitigation strategy that I will send to you sometime before the end of August that tells you what our initial plans are to do every time we hear of a COVID case. Sort of like a flow chart for people to follow, so that when you hear of something, you can refer to that flow chart and understand that the district will be taking the following steps. Also, contact tracing. I told you about our work with the Department of Health, and they have set us up with contact tracers specifically for school. I am not a medical doctor in any capacity. I have taken, and I encourage you to take, the contact tracing course that is offered through Johns Hopkins. It's free on Coursera. You can get your little certificate, but I mean, I think it's really helpful. I took it because I want to feel confidence in the Department of Health and what the Okay. And the other one is home-based symptom screening. Every single employee in the school district is doing an online attestation each morning before coming to school. So when I wake up in the morning, I start with taking my own temperature. I go to the attestation, I fill it out, and I come to work. Every single employee will be required to do that before coming into the building. Students, the nurses will be sending something home, and parents, please, I encourage you. I know you have high school age children.
Pulled out a ring and said,
Okay, thank you. If Bob could just unmute.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, just mute yourself. We'll be okay.
Yeah, Jen,
So
I might mute all sometimes. Jen, I just have to kick someone out. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Bob's not
We'll get there.
behaving. Well,
Yeah.
there's always a misbehaving Bob in the
Yeah,
room.
we'll
So
get
Bob
someone.
will go.
Yep.
Okay. So thanks, Tim. But as far as home-based symptom screening is concerned, we urge parents, please. I know I had teenagers. I know that the thought of them sitting with you and having their temperature taken every day may seem silly. It is not silly. I need to know every day that I come to work that I am not bringing COVID into this work environment. And I need parents to know that every day it's your job to make sure that your children are not bringing COVID into their friends and into the staff, and the staff the same. So please, when you receive that, please adhere to it. We will also have temperature machines in each of our buildings at 3 entrances. They will be the walk-through temperature screening devices. And if they are delayed in their delivery to us, we will have hand scanning devices, and we will scan everyone before they come into the school building for temperature. I think I covered all of that. We listened to you in the survey. How many of you said that you would return your children to school if we went all return? How many would return remotely? Somebody right now is saying I'm going too fast, but don't worry, we disaggregated the data right here. So for the high school, we had 591 people respond. For scenario 2, 85% said that they would consider sending their children back to school if we did an A-B rotation. This data was important to us in our decision making. Scenario 1, this would only be the scenario if we bring back grade levels one at a time, and that is all students returning to school. And if we did it, we would try to put certain classes in large spaces so they would not need to be divided, and kids would not have to be learning remotely in a room while the other kids were learning in person on the days that they were off days. But right now, we know that we may have to have some classes that have half the students in one place, half in the other. I'd like to go to 2, which was our hybrid, because this is what we proposed and the board approved to start the year. Remember, folks, this is a start the year. At any given point, even after the first day of school, this could change and we could be told to go remotely. A percentage of students are in school every day, about 50% or so will come on Monday and Tuesday, the other 50% on Thursday and Friday, alternating weeks. This, by the way, I'm reading it now and seeing how confusing it is. Essentially, I'll show you a chart, which is going to make things easier, but teachers are going to have flexibility with how they deliver instruction. Remember, they are going to have students who are at home and students who are in class. They may be teaching live on a Google Meet or a Zoom Meet. They may have pre-recorded lessons, but they will absolutely, during your child's period, be synchronous with your child, whether they are home or at school, and conduct lessons for them. So scenario 3, all remote learning, pretty much the same thing. This was the recommendation. I want to go to the high school schedule so that you are not confused. And here we have the high school. This is where I want to start actually. If I'm in the A group, I am coming in on Monday and Tuesday. If I'm in the B group, I'm home remote. If I'm in the group that never came at all because I'm medically vulnerable, for all intent and purposes, I'm in the B group at that time. If I'm in the B group, I come Thursday and Friday, while the A group and the remote students who never came to school are learning remotely. And on Wednesday, there will be a rotating schedule. Chris Walsh, if you look at the document I sent home yesterday about schedules, he even gives it to you in advance of when your child is going to be attending on that Wednesday day. That's really important, especially if you have older children who are the child care for your younger children, to help you plan through the semester how that is going to happen. This is the grade 9 to 12 hybrid schedule. If you look at the numbers, those are reflective of the numbers that used to be in our periods 1 through 8. So if you look at a Monday, students who are in session are going to go to their first period. They're going to transition to second, fourth, to sixth period and eighth period, with lunch being a part of this fourth period. There will be, you'll notice at 7:45 to 8:30, independent learning and small group tutorials. If students are at home, they will be assigned to do the small group tutorials. Otherwise, it will be independent learning. That time also exists so that we can stagger the arrival time of people to school. We understand that parents will be driving students, students will be driving themselves. We can't have that happening at the same time as buses because of the larger flow of cars we're anticipating. So we are looking at that to have some small group tutorials that will probably mostly take place for students at home. And that will happen again in the afternoon. And those will be structured small group tutorials. We have on Tuesdays, we will hit periods 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. And what Chris Walsh has designed is that there is approximately the same amount of time a student will be spending in school as time a student will be spending out of school. When this schedule is put into place and we consider holidays and we consider when the children are coming on Wednesdays and we consider a sort of mid-semester flip of the classes. The kids will still come on the same days they're supposed to come, but there will be a movement of when these periods occur at some point so that we can make sure that every child receives the same amount of direct instruction from their teacher or so. To give you an idea of what this will look like a little bit, we can have a teacher at their desktop or a teacher standing in front of the room. To the left, you'll see document cameras that we have for every teacher already. So picture a math teacher maybe sitting at their desk and maybe instead of writing on a board, they are writing on a piece of paper that's getting projected to students at home also, if that teacher decides to do whole class instruction. If the teacher is deciding to do something using their Promethean board, this new product that the BHEF is working to help us with called ViewSonic will help the teacher be able to share that to their Promethean board in the classroom, and it will also act as a Promethean board for our students who are at home remote learning. So This is just to give you a little visual picture of it. But as I said, when we put our plan on the website at the end of this week, you can go into the section on instruction and see specifically how some of that instruction will look. One thing that's important to note is all language communications and special class students will return. If your children are in the language communications class, they will be coming every day. If they have a special class, we are working on a schedule right now to see how and if we can include students in school every day. There will be no stigma involved in doing that. Keep in mind that if the rest of the world is coming every other day, they're not really sure who's coming every day or every other day. They just think those are the kids showing up with them on that day. So that is what we are looking for. This, I will send you a link probably by tomorrow night with the return to school plan. It is 90 pages. You may want to grab a soft drink and a snack while reading it, but it will be there for you to look at all of the explicit parts of our plan. For health and safety, when you get to that plan on the website, I included some fast facts. These are like cliff notes for people who don't want to read the whole document. But basically for training, we will have video training that will be provided to all families from the principal. That will come August 14th. That will include video from your administrators simulating for students what a typical day is going to look like, from school nurses talking about how to stay safe, how to wear your PPE, hand washing, from transportation about what to do if you're taking a bus to school every day, what are the protocols for social distancing at bus stops, how are we going to load and unload buses. We will be sending a transportation survey either tomorrow or Monday, asking parents if they intend to send their children on the bus. If we have buses that don't have much ridership at all, we may have those buses pick up other routes so that we can reduce the number of children on those buses. We'll have a back to front loading. We have cleaning in place. I'll explain all of that later. But know that August 14th, you're going to get all of that in a video package from the principals. We care very much that you are as knowledgeable as possible before school starts. We also care very much that your children have a soft landing back to school. School is not going to look the same for them. They're going to show up and have to wear masks. They're going to be socially distanced from their friends. We're going to have to enforce that in hallways and in larger areas. It's going to be very different for them. There are going to be social emotional components to that. And our guidance department has already put some different resources on the website for our guidance department, and our psychologists are really looking at how they can help bridge that gap for you as a parent and for your children as children. Our health checks I've spoken about in depth, and I cannot stress them enough. Please, parents and guardians at home, to do that. Masks will be worn by everyone at all times, unless a staff directs a student when it is okay to take a mask break. We will try and endeavor to do as much as we can not to have your children in masks all day long. But I will tell you that that means we will try to go to outdoor spaces and do a little more than socially distance, that we will be in class and we will try to find times when students are not doing a majority of talking. Our teachers have asked for face shields in addition to the mask so that they could stand 6 feet from your children and speak to them. Some of them are going to use them, not everyone, but speak to your children without them expelling anything onto your children or your children expelling anything onto them at a socially distant area. We are looking at some plexiglass shields. Those are a little bit difficult. I'm not even sure if people can get them in time given the market right now, but we're looking into that also. And we will have hand sanitizer everywhere. We will have regular wet wipes in classrooms. Our custodians are going to be on a rigorous detail that they have to document for cleaning bathrooms multiple times a day, for cleaning high-touch surfaces many times a day, and for trying to get into these classrooms and clean desks in the transition time for kids. For social distancing, I think I covered a lot of that already. All right, visitors. I'm so sorry, parents, but we have to keep you out of our schools. I want only the essential people who need to be in those schools to be around our students and our staff. So we're going to have a lot of adjustments to how to pick up your child. If they're sick, your child will be brought out to you. If you need to bring something to your child, all of that will be figured out, but we cannot have you physically entering the school building or anyone that is not essential to work there at the time. Cleaning. This is pretty important. So everything that we are using for cleaning and contact tracing, I'll go over all of the cleaning protocols right now. We have put into place based upon Department of Health guidance and also based upon what we are doing as a school district. So first of all, we will have something called BioShield. BioShield is something similar to what they're using on the MTA. It has been proven that COVID cannot adhere to surfaces when BioShield is sprayed. It is EPA approved for use in schools. BioShield is applied through a mister every 90 days. We will be applying it every 75 days. So what we are told, and other school districts are using this too in the county, is that you don't actually need to clean between groups. That said, we are going to try to clean between groups as well. I had teenagers, they're dirty. We want to try to keep the spaces as clean as we possibly can. But know that if those desks are not clean, we will look to either have the students in the next session use the alternating desks and make sure that they're socially distanced. We're going to try our best with that. We will have, in addition to the BioShield, our custodial staff will be using at different times the approved Lysol wipes. Now, I'm not sure if you know this, but we've all essentially been using our Lysol wipes incorrectly in our homes. As I'm Lysoling, wiping everything in my house, there's actually a proper way to utilize those Lysol wipes. They are supposed to be used. They are supposed to be allowed to cure for a certain amount of time, a few minutes, and then they are supposed to be cleaned with a wet, clean cloth. That is not supposed to be left on surfaces all the time. So our custodians know how to use that equipment. They have HEPA filters on vacuums now. We have purchased very specific air, like dust mops to collect dust that have been shown to be better in this situation. We have air conditioning systems in our school. We are not fully air conditioned. The Board of Education has agreed to air condition the additional top floor at the high school that is not air conditioned. Now that would be the math wing for anybody who's been there. It is atrociously hot. So they are going to air condition that. We are going to have MERV 13 filters applied in every one of our air conditioning systems. Those are recommended to be changed 3 times a year. We are changing them 4 times a year. We have had conversations with Dr. Thomas Murray about airflow. We know that our air conditioning systems allow in, depending upon the temperature, a certain amount of fresh air every day. We are having air ventilator checks done in each building before school starts to make sure that there is air ventilation through each of those rooms and what the rate is. And we are doing humidity checks of all classrooms before school starts as well, to try to stay within the parameters of what the humidity levels are that we should stay in. And that will go on a rotation throughout the school year as well. So all of those health and safety pieces, very important. Purell everywhere, bathrooms, making sure that all sinks are working. I know that sometimes sinks don't work. All sinks, all toilets are working, making sure that we replace regular water fountains when we can with the fillable water stations, and making sure that those are cleaned ad nauseum. School closures I've spoken about, but basically the governor said if the regional infection rate rises over 9% for a 7-day rolling average, they will close schools and tell us to go remotely. And our plan is we will be ready to go remotely immediately. So principals' coffees and updates. Of course, you're going to hear from me probably more than you like to. But August 14th, the principals will be sending out their video, and August 20th, we will host another principals' coffee to give updates. And I will be very explicit about what our COVID tracing chart looks like at that time. I want to thank our teachers and administrators and parents who have been on these stakeholder groups, the Board of Education, everybody who has given so much of their time so that we could be sure to try to get this plan into place, a plan that we spent countless hours on, and we know at the drop of a dime, we have to change to remote learning. but it is worth getting your children into school and back to some normalcy and a better educational experience in their environment. We have spent so much time over the summer looking at remote learning and doing some additional preparation for what remote learning can look like. And I encourage you to take a look at the instruction section that Dr. Kaltenecker spearheaded when our plan comes out, to see what teachers are looking to do in their classrooms. This is going to be much different than it was in the spring. We had the benefit of time to try to really get it right. So I encourage at this point, anybody who has questions to put it in the chat. Some people may be asking questions like, how come not half day instead of hybrid? Our transportation can't manage that. So we can't have half days for everybody in the school district. We would probably need 2 times as many buses and drivers to do that. So that cannot happen. And schools, you should know, are doing things, all of the decisions are really being made on a density issue and a square footage issue. We have square footage, but we are looking also at transmission rates, and we are looking at students' learning dispositions to do this work remotely if they're in the hybrid pattern. So that is why we are opting for this. Okay, and I'm going to rely on, I'm going to look at the chat too, but I'm also going to rely on Tim, Chris, and the assistant principals to either direct questions at me or take questions.
Yeah, Jen, thanks. I'll jump in. And again, I apologize to you, Jen, and to all the parents.
Chris, I was covering for you.
The password. No, that was all my fault. Don't take the blame on that one. There'll be plenty of more for you down the line. Again, apologies. And Jen, thank you very much for explaining the plan district-wide and jumping in here at the building level. We feel like the major thing that people will want to know about is the actual schedule. So our schedule is designed with a number of different purposes. When we went into it, we knew that we needed to create a schedule that allowed for student and faculty safety, first and foremost. We needed to maintain an ease of transition between in-person and remote learning, where if we have to go all out, we didn't want there to be any break or any pause in the instruction. And this schedule allows us to go from one to the other. We also needed to make sure that students had access to instruction both in person and remotely, because we knew if we were going to go hybrid, we would need to be able to satisfy all of those students through this hybrid model. We knew from the feedback from parents through the spring that they wanted more structure, and that their students sleeping until 1 p.m. Was not something that they wanted to continue in the fall. So this schedule does maintain structure and allows us to help you get your student out of bed if they're not coming to school on a particular day. We also—
Chris? Oh, go
Yes.
ahead.
Go
I'll
ahead.
start with a couple of questions,
Okay.
just regarding PE and Regents requirements. So we've been told that PE can happen if they're 12 feet apart or farther, and that PE requirements are going to look much different. It can be remote, it can be asynchronous. So we're covered for regarding our PE requirement. Mentor, Chris, can you talk a little bit about that? What that's going to look like, and what is that going to look like if we bring all the freshmen back to school?
Yes. So the way that we are working with Mentor is that the students, as it's set up right now, are going to be split by alphabet, and we would have the first part going in the Monday and Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, depending on the week, one group would come in on that Wednesday. And in addition, all of the students are going to be supported remotely during the time. So each one of the mentor classes has 2 senior mentors. They will be split up so that one of them will always be in person and the other one will be remote, and they'll be able to support the students that way. Additionally, on Wednesdays, we have a callback pullback period where all of the mentor classes are going to be able to meet as well. So they will actually meet 4 times in the 5-day cycle.
All right, Chris, 7 a.m. health class. Can you explain how that's going to work?
Yeah, right now we're working on a plan to possibly get that in at 7:45, and those 7 a.m. classes would take place during the normally scheduled independent e-learning period. So those students involved in that would be scheduled to come in and take the class at 7:45 rather than having to come in at 7 a.m. We're looking into that. We're hoping that we can make that work. One of the additional things that somebody's going to ask is, can we allow juniors to drive in?
Oh, that's it. 2 have asked.
Since there will be half the amount of cars in there. The answer is unfortunately no, because we do anticipate eventually getting back to full schedule. We do still, we will have a number of cars, an increased number of cars pulling in and out of the parking lot during the times when students are driving in. And we are anticipating using that additional space for the increased amount of cars that are coming in. We also know that our junior drivers are sometimes a little bit less sure of themselves. And we have found that allowing them or holding them back to drive into the parking lot to the spring helps us avoid many of the unnecessary little fender benders in the parking lot.
And Chris, I think that like anything else, let's give it a month or 2 and see how things are going and see what our thought processes are on that. But I would say I agree with you wholeheartedly, but we'll look at it. Another one is about sports. Nothing on sports yet. We are going to hear from section 1 after they get their advice. So once we have that information, we will gladly share that out with everyone. Chris, another question about driver's education.
Well, if Dr. Kaltenecker can unmute Miss O'Connor, then she's been living in driver's ed world for the past month or so.
Chris, while we're waiting for her, can you talk about how labs are going to work with a block schedule?
Yeah, so in this model, in the previous model, we would have our labs meeting 3 days out of the 9-day cycle. In this one, they will be meeting 1 day out of the 5-day cycle. So there will be less time in labs, but that time is still well within the range of the guidelines set by New York State. And everybody remembers last year that they actually took away the requirement for those 1,200 minutes of lab time. And we sort of certainly anticipate that they would limit that as well this year for us. But we do have labs that are scheduled. They are built in to all of those classes that they normally would have been built in for.
Can you talk about chem TAs and the other TAs and how that's going to work with this hybrid schedule? And guess what, Chris, if you haven't figured that out yet, it's okay. I do that. I say, I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, we're working on that with our Steve Borneman, who is he runs the TA program, and with Doug Carpenter, Tom Andriello, to make sure that we have, and Chris Lewick, to make sure that we have a system that works for their programs. So in the case of peer leader, it gets a little bit tricky just having those seniors in just for that class, because if we did that, they would then be going home and they would potentially be missing a class that they would need to be in virtually. So we are still trying to split those times when those mentors, peer leaders, and TAs come into the building. But we're looking at the program overall to try to balance all of those senior leaders so that each one of those classes is being supported.
All right, is Colleen in for driver's ed?
I am. I can give a quick update. So we've been working really closely with Paz Auto and driver's ed. And for those students who completed their online class requirements this spring. PAWS is planning to really prioritize them this fall and to add in additional sessions so that they'll be able to get their driving road hours. As of now, Governor Cuomo has not released students from those requirements for the road hours. PAWS is looking at different ways to promote social distancing in these driving lessons. However, they do plan to give us an updated plan on the week of August 3rd, so you should look to hear from us at the end of that week.
Great, thank you. Chris, there are some special education questions here. Is co-taught going to look the same as regular education regarding the schedules? And I think
Yeah,
that's
so
it
we
for
are,
special
you know,
education.
we're still going ahead with the full schedule of integrated co-taught classes that we had previously, and they've even expanded in some ways. So the thing with those classes are that we know that half of the students in those ICT classes are going to be in the building any day. So we've been looking at those sections to make sure that we have a good balance there.
Okay, and there will be a child meeting that will be hosted next week also. Jill Boynton will be sending some information out, so parents can look out for that as well. A couple of questions I can.
Sorry, the
questions
Regents exams.
Yeah.
Right now, we're moving ahead as if they are going to be offered. But I'll let Dr. Kaltenecker speak about his opinions on those.
Sure, we've had no guidance from state ed on Regents exams, and I specifically reached out to the assistant commissioner overseeing assessments, and they have not made any decisions about Regents exams, although we will be following the New York State learning standards so that we will be prepared to teach toward the Regents if that's what we have to do. So students will be prepared for any Regents exams or standardized testing.
Right. A bunch of questions I can hit pretty quickly. Extracurricular clubs and activities, non-sports related, will they still exist? And the answer is yes. Whether they are happening remotely or they're happening in school, we want your children to be a part of these activities that they care about.
And Jen, on top of that, we still plan on holding the club fair because a lot of our incoming freshmen aren't aware of what clubs are being offered. We're still going to be holding that for them. We'll be doing it through their mentor classes.
We still have some classes about mentor. I guess some children, freshmen, received a mentor letter, some did not. And
yeah, those are, I would bet that it's due more on the senior mentor than the actual formal letter that went out. What happened is the senior mentors were given the class lists, and they were told that they would be able to contact the ninth graders in their classes. So I'd be willing to bet that some of those seniors are probably out at camp or somewhere else right now, and just have not been able to reach out to their freshmen in their class.
And peer leader, not mentor, but peer leader. How will that work?
Yeah, we're still on that. We're trying to just make sure that we balance out those peer leader sections. Peer leader is a little trickier because they actually take the course first period, and then they're embedded in the class at some other period during the day. So we're trying to make sure that we have at least coverage for those. Oh, the lights went out here. So that they have at least coverage for all of those health classes. So we're trying to break them up, and that may mean that some of the peer leaders are not going in with their alphabetical group.
Okay, I think it's probably best to share that with peer leaders so they could share it with their parents. It's not probably a global thing, right? I have had some questions that seem like questions for, one is about guidance. Will there be some Zoom sessions for college? Yes, Christina Wilson is on this. She has resources on the webpage already as well, but she will be getting in touch with parents, and they will be trying to have as many remote kind of introductions to colleges and college visitations that we possibly can. So she's been working pretty diligently this summer on that. We anticipate that we will have those connections. I had a parent who was asking about the use of the track. Can we use the track before school starts? So we are not permitted to open the school facilities to large groups. That said, if somebody comes and is walking on the track and you're not walking in a bunch of teenagers or as an adult, like truly enjoy, right? When we're not back at school yet. But we absolutely have kicked out and cannot have people in here who are in groups, like that little private group of soccer players who wants to come and play together on a Saturday morning. You know, we're having our grounds surveilled, so please discourage any of that kind of stuff. And also somebody asked about vacation and travel. Are we going to say anything to families? In the document that I'm going to be sending to families, it talks about the travel advisory states with a link to the most updated states. Basically, everyone, you can go to New York. I think you can also go to Michigan. And maybe there's one other place you can go, Idaho. I don't know, but it seems to me like everywhere has a travel advisory. So yes, parents are going to need to be watching that, and they're going to need to quarantine their kids upon return. I think the governor's office is very serious about that and about the fines associated with that. Whether they can do something about that, I'm not really sure. Chris, another question about chorus and how that is going to take place. We cannot, although some of the guidelines say if they're over 12 feet apart from each other, they can sing. We are going to try whether we do a flipped classroom for chorus, meaning the singing part is happening at home or the trumpet part is happening at home. And the learning of music is happening in school. That is essentially the plan, that until we can have it be as safe as possible, we will be operating under a flipped classroom scenario. Grading, Chris, that might be a good one for you. Have you given thought to grading policies in the class in the event we go back out online again?
Yeah, so as you know, speaking in the beginning, one of the things that we talked about was the need to make sure that all the kids understood that they were going to be graded, where I think we did a really good job with feedback in the spring. We know that it's essential that all of our kids end this year with a grade on their transcript. So we have a grading subcommittee made up of teachers from every content area going over this question to try to make sure that we have a philosophy that would be school-wide and then broken down content-wide about how we are going to be grading all of our students in a way that is, number one, equitable, but addresses issues of academic integrity, and that it does hit on the areas of content knowledge, skills, growth, and positive student behaviors. So we have developed a number of rubrics. We still like the idea of breaking up the sort of projects into launch weeks. So we're still going to try to use that 2-week time frame to sort of look at and break up the units to the groups. We're also doing away with the staggered. Uh-oh. Did I freeze up?
You're okay now.
Okay. So we're also doing away with the staggered end to the quarter, and we will be doing our normal quarters. And then we anticipate that all of the grades will be placed up on eSchool data, and that parents will be able to follow along with the grades up there. And attendance. We're looking at making sure that attendance is taken in person and online every day at the scheduled time when that class meets.
So, Chris, a lot of questions about what does this look like when my child is at home? What does the schedule look like? How is it that these children are going to be in class and out of class at the same time? And I think I want to address that a little bit. So following that same schedule that Chris said. So my schedule is the schedule, whether I am remote and medically fragile, whether I am hybrid and I am home, or whether I am in class. I still have to report at that same time. The teacher will be designating certain times perhaps they will be doing a live stream of a lesson. And then they will have all of these groups that they are operating simultaneously. At other times, teachers might decide to break the groups up into small parts. Group A, very similar to what we had in elementary school, right? Where Group A is looking at this asynchronous lesson and then moving on and doing these different questions before the teacher comes in to go over those questions or that activity with them. And Group B is being instructed by the teacher at that particular time. And Group C, who has already been instructed by the teacher, may be doing some independent practice with a teacher rotating between the three groups. There are a plethora of ways that this could happen. Tim Kaltenecker came up with models that he's been working with the chairs and directors that the teachers will have access to and are being trained in of how does this instruction look for the children who are in all of these three places. But your child will be instructed by their teacher in the period they're supposed to be, whether they are remote or they are in school. Somebody asked another follow-up question about extracurriculars. I said that before, but they will be taking place, except sports for now, we're waiting. And are they going to be remote or in person? We don't know yet. We just know that we're going to offer them, and they're an important part of your children feeling like they are in the school community. Pictures.
Yes, if we do go out, if we do have to go to remote learning, this is the same schedule that we will be using for that as well.
Field open for individual use now, not on Tuesday, by the way. We have 4 graduations going on Tuesday. So will the field be open? What I would say is, if an individual in the community comes and wants to use the facility to walk the track or doing some socially distanced activity, you know, we're not allowed to tell you you're allowed to use the fields or use the facilities, because our insurance says that that is something that happens when schools are in session. So when you enter into school property, you are trespassing. That said, if you come and you walk on the track because you want to do this in the evenings, and you are by yourself and you are not with a group of people and you are socially distanced, I'm hard pressed to think anybody's kicking you out. Is that fair? I think that's fair.
So there was a good question about the difference between the independent e-learning and small group tutorials.
Yeah.
So independent e-learning would be more of students working independently, whether they're watching a video or whether they're doing work that they need to prepare for a flipped lesson. The small group tutorial would be more like an office hours, but it would be directed more so from the teacher. So if that teacher felt like a certain group of students needed to have more support, that teacher would, sign up and manage those students at that time. It could be both in person or online.
Chris, we have a question about some special education questions. I know we've had them before in this chat, but just about if my child is in resource room, are they expected to be coming every day? We will be in touch with students who are going to either come every day or not come every day at the high school level. It depends on a couple of different factors and how many classes a student might be self-contained in, et cetera, and if they're in a special class. So I ask a pause on that and we will be getting back to you. Jill will also hold Jill Boynton, a child session next week, and she'll send out an invitation soon. So I would say that's forthcoming within the next week.
Jen, I think that was more geared towards resource room. So the answer would be that we would use those small group tutorial sessions to supplement the periods that student would normally go to resource room as well. So there are opportunities when the student is not in school, but that they would still be engaging with that teacher in that resource room period, whenever that would be.
Question about screen time. So no, we are not anticipating that your child is going to sit, as I have sat today and all of yesterday, looking at a screen in these Zoom sessions. It basically knocked me out. But what will that look like? There will be times where they are looking at the screen and they're directly interacting with the teacher. And then there will be times the teacher is giving them work to do that is not computer generated. So we are hoping for an amalgam of both to complement each other. It's too hard to be on screens all day long. And while in the spring, I remember hearing, well, such and such a school is live streaming their classes all day long, and so-and-so's child is sitting and watching the teacher on the computer all day. Why aren't we doing that? Because it's terrible. It's the worst form of instruction that you could do, is just to have a videotape on a teacher strolling all day long while your child is going in and out of nap sessions. So these will be more interactive. We're going to be conscious about that screen time. We know that it's an necessary evil right now that these children are spending more time on screens than they ever have, but we are aware of that and we will be looking at that. Extra
So
help.
we're working
Yeah.
with Life Touch right now to make sure that we are scheduling senior photos. We were not able to allow them, as they normally would, to be in the building over the course of the summer to take their photos. And we also did not feel comfortable with sending our students to take them at a outside location. So we're working with Amy Menashe right now to make sure that we are planning to have them in the building taking pictures starting in September.
Question about guidance and when schedules are going to come out and when students are going to have a chance to talk to their guidance counselors.
Yep. So we are in the process of finalizing those schedules. They will go out on August 14th. That's when we're planning on sending them out. And then from there, the following week, guidance will be sending out the days when they will be able to virtually meet. The counselors will virtually meet for schedule changes. So you would be able to go in and meet with your counselor virtually, and all of those things that you would normally do where you'd have to wait outside of the guidance office. Well, now you just have to wait in a waiting room in a Google Meet or a Zoom, and then you'll go in and do those things.
And Chris, I was just texting with Christina Wilson, our guidance chairperson, about the college process. She's sending out a correspondence tomorrow to all seniors and a video, and seniors will be meeting with their counselor by the end of September. They will all have individual meetings with their guidance counselor, students will, about the process.
So will extra help classes like math and English workshop, this came privately to me, be available?
Yes, we still anticipate running them, and we would still try to set them up where we either work something out with their elective, or we would try to work it into the independent e-learning or the small group tutorial. Yes, the idea that every kid at home would be logging in, or not logging in, but engaging with the class that is on their schedule at that time every day. So first period, if your kid is home, happens to be L through Z and it's a Thursday, A through K and it's a Thursday, then at 8:30, the expectation would be that they would be working at that period with that, along with that class.
I'll wait a second for any other questions. These are great questions. Thank you so much.
Oh,
How-
parking permits, good question. So Courtney Bogren, who is the AP secretary, she will be managing the system, but we will need an actual copy of the license for each of the seniors to be able to get it. So she will, usually what we do is we send it out along with the driver's ed information. We send out the form with the summer mailing, and we still anticipate that that will happen, but the seniors would need to make a copy and bring that in the first week of school.
And there's a question about testing students in this environment. when we're learning remotely, and I am working with the academic chairs on doing more project-based and where students have to create product to demonstrate their learning, but also looking at other ways that we can assess students' learning that isn't a typical test that we're used to taking in school because of just issues of security of exam information. So we are developing plans for that type of assessing of student learning.
Schedules will be going out on the 14th. Lunch will work socially distanced. We're looking at making sure that every one of the areas where the students meet, that the numbers are well below what they should be, and that the students are monitored for when they are eating with their masks, when they take their masks off, that they don't broach those. We also are looking into getting those barriers so that students would be able to eat at a table with friends, but they would be having that barrier between them. We also are having grab and go. We are going to encourage students to bring in their own lunches. We are still going to offer through Aramark a number of different options. And we will be using the Bobcat Hall and we'll also be using the lower gym as well to make sure that students are spaced out.
How will tests take place if some kids are home on any given day? So I think, I don't know, Tim, if you want to address that, but I think that that's individual teachers are going to work that into their schedules for when students are hybrid, when they're in and when they're not in, but they also have to deal with assessments for students who are at home remotely the entire time. So I think that's going to take a lot, a lot more work to figure out those schedules.
Yeah, and I'm working with teachers in the academic chairs on how we assess student learning.
And the way,
We don't really have an answer for you, but we're working on it. Is like,
Yeah, but also more project-based learning as well, or assessments.
we know what the assessments will look like. We're not sure, like, does it take the form of a regular test or more of a project based?
It'd be variety.
It's going to be a variety. What's the procedure for students arriving at school? And there's also a question about, are we still expecting to start school on the date before Labor Day? Yes, we are. The procedure for students arriving at school and also the bus schedule. This person said they're thinking of the 7:45 health class.
Yeah, so we still anticipate the normal bus drop off. So the bus would be able to drop students off anywhere between 7:20 and 7:30 normally. And we anticipate less numbers on those buses. So the routes, the buses may arrive here earlier than they normally would. So in that case, those students are going to be ushered into the building through any one of 4 entrances where they would be able to be monitored. And then they would be given an assigned location where they would go if they were not assigned to have a small group tutorial. So at that time, they might either go to the lecture hall or the theater or the lower gym or a large space where they could go and work independently. We know that also during that time, we're going to have families dropping off their students starting probably anywhere from 7:30 all the way through actually 8:20. So those students will be met and they will be asked to go through the appropriate entrance and they will be sort of monitored. And then from there, they'll be going to their assigned location. And then we know that we're going to have seniors driving in at any time up until 8:30 or 8:31 and then running to their classes. So all of those people as they come in, will be managed and given specific areas where they need to congregate.
Chris,
Once that happens, the first period will begin. Every one of the transition periods are now 10 minutes long, where before on A days, we used to have them at 3 minutes. 3 minutes on an A day, we were still able to move 800 kids to their next class. Now we have 10 minutes with half of the class, half of the students here. And we're going to break that up by grade level and by hallway. So the idea being that using one-way hallways, we're going to limit the interactions of students throughout the building during those transitions. Now, on dismissal, we're going to reverse it in many ways, but we also know that our day ends at 2:25. There are certain days when students are not going to be required to go to a small group tutorial, that they would actually might choose to go home and have their parents pick them up early. And we'll be giving you information on the procedure to be able to do that, and how we'll be able to support the student leaving the building during that time safely and effectively.
We had a question about, I have a student who's a senior and one who's in 7th grade. Will they be on the same schedule? Yes, they will be on the same schedule of days that they're in and days that they're out. Another question about, is there a screening app that students have to answer on a daily basis? No, there isn't. We will periodically send home an electronic survey to fill out for your child. But we are really urging, asking, begging parents every single day when we send you the list of things to check your child for before sending them to school, or before they send themselves to school if they're older and you leave before them. Please, they must be adhered to, including temperature checking before you enter onto our school property. It is not required as part of New York State. And we know we have the temperature checks here, but we really have to ask you to do that. When it is required, we will send you an electronic survey. A question about if a teacher's being on a Zoom at the same time for the kids who are at home. So yes, if a teacher is just choosing to do a Zoom, the teacher may choose to have the students at home in hybrid on at the same time. They may also choose to do it at a different time, to set the students at home on in an activity for a certain period of time until they directly give them instruction. So they will be connected with their teacher during that time, whether it's the entire time or whether the teacher is structuring learning activities and instructional time in there. And I think there was one
We
about
are still, yes,
schedule.
all of the electives are still being offered, and the graduation requirements are still the same. So obviously, with some of the art classes, we're going to have to get really creative with how we make sure that we can help the kids move through the content and the curriculum there. The teachers have been working really hard all summer, making sure that they are going to be doing that. You mentioned photography there. I think they're going to go all digital for photography, which will help them.
Yes.
We still used to use the old Kodachrome, but we're moving away from that because
sad.
the old arts.
That's sad to go away from real film. I like that, but we
We'll
have to.
get
with
back
the
to real
darkroom
film.
later.
We'll get back to real life. Are there any final questions before we finish?
August 14th, again, the schedules will be sent home.
I'll give just an extra minute for that extra question. We will have another principal's coffee, remember, at the end of August. And of course, we're available to answer any questions that you may have. And we are so much more available with answers to those questions than Facebook. So if you want to ask us the questions before making yourself nervous and more nervous and breeding that nervousness, we appreciate it, because if we don't have the answers, we can at least look to get them for you. Remember, yep, go ahead.
There's one last one. It's good. I think it's from Katie asking about student lockers.
Oh, yeah.
This is a really great question. Most of my other principal colleagues at schools in the area, they are not allowing students to use lockers. We are considering that we can still possibly use it, because we are going to be having limited numbers of students in the hallways. But what we will definitely not allow is students to share lockers or to use lockers that were not assigned to them. So one of the traditions here at Byram Hills has been that seniors sort of are given a locker and then they go to a certain area and take that over. We are not going to be able to do that this year, unfortunately.
No senior rites of passage. How will the Wednesday schedule be for September 2nd? A group or B group. That's actually in what I sent last night. It's in the schedule section where Chris indicated who is having what group on Wednesdays, but I don't know if you know that offhand, Chris. It's really long, detailed the entire semester, and that's really to help you with your planning, with your children, with driving, and anything else that you need to help with.
Right now, we have A through K going on Tuesday, and then Wednesday and Thursday is the L through Z.
Where will the musicians leave their instruments? TBD. We don't know. We're going to figure that out. That's on our list. All right, folks, I think we're going to end there. I implore you, please remain safe. You have done so much, so well to keep our community in such a good space that we even think that these plans are doable for September. So I ask you to please keep that up. Thank you so much for all of your encouragement while we've been doing all of this work. We know in this time in our lives, nothing is perfect. We are trying to get as close to successful as we can. We care about your children. We want to get them back into school. We want to do it safely. Thanks for all of the encouraging words, the emails that you sent to us. They really do mean a lot. Thank you to the parents who sent me face masks. I really appreciate that, wanting me to be a little more stylish. But just really the encouragement is all that we need. We care about your children. Your administrators and teachers have bought into this community very hard, and we care about staying here and making sure it's right. So thanks so much for all of your help. We are here for your questions, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again. Enjoy these days of summer with your families and be safe. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Gina.
Thanks, everybody.